Well, to begin with, my name is Hans, and I was born roughly about 61 and a half years ago. And I I studied in Baroda. I did my graduation in sculpture, and at which point of time, really, that I got interested in doing theatre. And these two things continued together for a while. And eventually I gave up doing sculpture entirely. And now I paint. I paint quite a bit. But I do a lot more theatre. Theatre has become my livelihood now. So I suppose that's some kind of an introduction. I don't know. I don't think there is any kind of a difference between drama and theatre. Drama is what people do, in their homes. Children do with their parents, or parents do with their children, and so on and so forth. That's drama. But theatre is something that's, I would guess, a little bit more formal. You take it out maybe into the streets, or maybe into an auditorium, or a performance space, if you want to call it that, and you perform for a whole bunch of people. Then it elevates from being just plain drama at home to theatre, where things are a little more sort of formalized, and you have spaces, and you have the audience, and you have the performer, and so on and so forth. It's not just you and your children, or you and your parents, whatever, making drama for each other. The beginnings of theatre go quite far back into the mists of time, if I can call it that. One of my earliest teachers of theatre was Rashmi of Mrs. YGP fame, and I studied in PSBB, the Munambakam branch, and one of the interesting things was Rashmi used to take classes, theatre classes, and one of the first lessons that I still remember so clearly was Julius Caesar, and she would do this. She would perform Julius Caesar, and she would perform the murder, and she would perform the warning about the Ides of March and so on, and it was brilliant. And I think my first inspiration came right from there. And of course, I took part in school plays, and there was never. I had my own sense of drama in that thing, and I improvised quite madly, and it was not looked on very kindly at that point of time, because you were not expected to improvise; you were expected to follow the lines, and but there I was, I still remember there was this scene where I think we were doing the Jallianwala Bagh scene, and I was one of the protesters, and I tried this most dramatic death, and everybody was looking at me saying, "This guy's still dying." Instead of just falling to the floor and opening my mouth, tongue hanging out, kind of thing. There I was flopping all over the ground, suffering great agonies, being shot and so on. It was quite hilarious, really, but they didn't like it one bit. Anyway, so the beginnings were right there. But then while I was doing sculpture in Baroda, there was this very dear friend who came up and said, "Do you want to try out for a part? And would you like to act?" I said, "I don't know. I'll give it a shot. I haven't done much before." So he said, "Okay, come." And I read for a little part, and suddenly there I was, and the lights were on, and I was performing, and it was the most incredible experience ever. And then I think I was properly hooked at that point of time. I haven't looked back since. once school was over, of course, there was hardly any mentorship to speak of. I wasted about 3 years, 3.5 years doing economics here, which I never finished, by the way. And I then went on to Baroda, and it was in Baroda that I met up with this absolutely incredible person, this chap called Arun Agnihotri. He had just come in from NSD, and he was starting off his theatre group, and it was with him that I started off doing theatre. And for a few years we were doing theatre. As long as I was in Baroda, we were doing theatre together. We did a number of plays, and then I met a whole bunch of other people, and we started. I was both acting, and I also started to direct a few plays at that point of time, jointly with somebody else. But the process had started then. So the knowledge of theatre and sort of what surrounds it began at that point of time, really. I didn't, I still don't. I mean, in the sense that it was just one of those things where one naturally flows into something rather than says, this is what I'm going to do with the rest of my life or something. It just naturally became that way. And, like I said, there was no looking back. But there is a point of time when I suppose you could say that it happened, which was in '92. There'd been various travels and various jobs and stuff like that. And I came back to Chennai in '86 or '87. And I was doing a lot of workshops on terracotta with various people, and I was doing some research on terracotta and traditional terracottas and stuff like that. And at that point of time, I met up with this gentleman called Alex, who's no more, unfortunately. He was doing this play, and I met up a whole bunch of people at that point of time, with whom later on I started to form very loosely this theatre group called Magic Lantern, and even that name was quite accidental because we were at that point of time we wanted to do children's theatre, and we started thinking of doing performances, taking it from one school to another school with a small set that we could travel around with. And we got in touch with the Little Theatre, Mrs. Aisha Rao, and she developed a little script along with us about Pinocchio, and we had taken it to CRY, Child Relief and You. And the lady who was in charge there, she said, "Do you have a name?" Praveen, who's the other co-founder of Magic Lantern, and I looked at each other and said, "Do we need one?" So she said, "Yeah, we'll call you Magic Theatre." So we looked at each other and said, "Magic Theatre doesn't sound very good. How about calling it Magic Lantern?" Because the idea of lights and lantern and so on had some kind of a fascination for us. So we decided that that would be our name, and since then we've been Magic Lantern, and we've continued on from there. Well, those challenges, if you can call them that, are still there. The challenges haven't changed. The challenges mainly have been to do with funding and production and so on. We've still had the same, or rather, we still have the same problems that we had then of finding producers, of finding, well, not sponsors, because sponsors is not a very happy situation, because they'll come in and sponsor a show, and then you're finished, because you'll do one show or two shows maximum, and then you fold up, which is not the way for theatre to survive. Theatre needs to perform again and again and again and again. You need to perform a play many times before the play can actually mature and be actually performable. The first 2 or 3 shows are just trials, really. It's only after that, after you do the trials, after about 10 shows or 12 shows, that you really take on the role, and not just the role, but the play itself grows, and the people who are acting in it or who are part of the technical team get to know their jobs, and things become smoother. And the actor has the freedom at that point of time to be able to improvise on stage and to be able to take it much further, to take the role, his role or her role, much further than they actually would. And that's when a play grows, really. So it's the same problem then, it's the same problem now. Still trying to find sponsors, we're still trying to find producers, not sponsors. So that's how it is. Well, we started off doing children's theatre with Pinocchio and Fables, and Fables was a very interesting experience. Uh, we had Karthik, who's doing animation now. The animation, he's directing the animation for the Ponniyin Selvan animated series and the comic books. Incredible, and inventive person. He comes from a Kuthu family, and he's one of the brightest people we know, who created something like about 120 puppets for about 5 actors. And we needed to slip into and out of various puppets and costumes and things like that, and roles really. Over the space of 1.5 hours. No, it wasn't even 1.5 hours. It was about an hour and a quarter. And there were 5 of us who were doing nearly 120 roles, and it was incredible. And it was all helped because of the visual uh, interest created by Karthik in those puppets. So anyway, so we were doing children's theatre at that point of time, and it was around then that we started some kind of a relationship with the Alliance, where Alliance invited us to use their space, their auditorium space, and uh, we started doing plays uh, that were French in nature. We started off with I think some of the modern plays uh, from France, and that was an incredible sort of an experience. I was designing sets as well, and we had these sets where people could pop into and pop out of, and suddenly open a trap door, and suddenly somebody could come out from there, and so on. And that was a pretty interesting sort of situation. But from there, we had this deep desire to go and explore a play completely. I was talking about doing more than 10 shows or 12 shows, and we got this opportunity to work on one of Moliere's scripts, which was Tartuffe or Veshakaran, which Padmini Rajgopal translated for us. And we performed Veshakaran about 40 villages. We'd initially taken it to Purisai, where we stayed, and we performed in the villages around for about 10 or 12 days. And then we took it to Tiruvannamalai and a few other places, and we kept performing. And what we had done was we'd hired this van, and we packed all our stuff into the van, the sets, the lights, I mean, whatever minimal lights there were, and all our makeup, all our costumes, and everything. And there were about 10 to 12 of us who got into the van, and we went to to Purisai first. We stayed there. We taken a house. We stayed in that house. We then premiered in Purisai village, which is the home of one of our finest Tirukuthu members, Kannappa Thambiran, who's passed away recently. And he is the father of Kuthu in Tamil Nadu, and almost everything seems to stem from him. Wherever you go, you come up with the name of Kannappa Thambiran and his scripts and his way of dealing with things. He was quite a taskmaster, so it was quite an experience to be able to perform in front of a modern play done with adaptations of traditional makeup, where we'd used all kinds of colors, and we'd used pasted on paper, folded paper, which was created by Ranjan Day, who's a designer. Uh, so it was quite an experience to be able to do that. And we performed about 40, 50 times. We also performed at the Alliance, and then we performed at Purse and all these villages. And that was an experience. I think that showed us what we should be doing as a theatre group, performing again and again, and telling people that that we need to perform many times over the same play. But somehow that doesn't seem to be happening, except for a very, very few people. I don't see many people actually performing a play again and again and again. I do a number of things. I do workshops with anybody who's interested, really, but especially groups of young people, because they are the ones who are sort of setting out on their journey, and I'd like to tell them that theatre is a good place to be. And I also work at a school where I teach drama at, well, you can call it the senior level, but that's not really true. But because I like to just deal with children, and they're some of the brightest minds around, and so far unspoiled, and one can give them the idea that theatre is a good place to be, and that theatre can be used as a very fine medium of expression, and that it's a great way to help each other to communicate. It's a great way to help each other to listen to what is going on, and it works at every level. So that gives me great pleasure. Teaching gives me great pleasure, and I'd like to keep doing it for as long as I can. Well, nothing has really changed, if you want to look at it that way. It's the same tools that we've been using since time immemorial. Uh, what does an actor have to tell a story? He has himself, he has his voice, he has his bearing to tell the story. Technology changes, but it doesn't really make a difference what kind of a light you have, whether you're using LEDs and profiles and gobos and things like that. They're just effects that are added on to create the atmosphere, and you have musicians who can, play along with you, and they can create this whole symphony orchestra with just one keyboard sitting there. But like I said, it's just effects. The essential tool that an actor has is himself or herself. That's an interesting way of. I mean, creativity is something that flows from anywhere, from everywhere. Uh, you can look at nature and find all sorts of inspiration there. And what really gets me and the rest of my group is the idea that everyone and everything has a story. And it's up to us to look at and to respond to these stories. And, a snail on a hot stone is a story. And the man walking down, riding his bicycle, or just walking around. There's a story there. You go to the park, you find incredible amount of stories. When 10, 10 guys get together and walk around, they're exchanging stories. I mean, there's drama and there's theatre. So one can draw inspiration from all these things. Then, of course, we all read, and we read the most incredible things. We read novels. Uh, we read stuff about wildlife. We read stuff about politics. We read stuff about all kinds of things, and it's these things. And sometimes it's the day-to-day concerns that inspire us. It may even be the price of vegetables. I mean, if you look at, say, one of the plays of Dario Fo, it's the title of the play is "We Can't Pay, We Won't Pay," and it's It's about, you know, the common man and how he's dealing with crisis and how he's dealing with the whole idea of a mall and going into a mall and, you know, there's the sale and so on and so forth. It can be the everyday and it can be the most elevated. You can talk about you know, Camus' plays or you know, one of our plays was Caligula, which we did many years ago, and it was incredible because uh, one of the most interesting things about it was that we played it one against the side of the museum. At that point of time, the whole campus was quite open, and the director of the museum was quite an open sort of person. He said you can use the side of the art gallery, which is a brilliant red sandstone, and we created a low-level set with a couple of fabric sides, and it gave us a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful backdrop to play. And we played in the open air for about a week, and then we went on to the Government College of Arts, where we played for another couple of weeks. And what was most interesting about the Government College of Arts was that nobody came. But we still went ahead and played, and eventually, after a couple of days, one person came, uh, and he was our audience for the last 7 days or so. And he was a guy who was driving a cycle rickshaw, and he would always be parked by the petrol pump that's by the side of uh, the uh, the college. And he would come in every evening and he would watch us perform and he would sit down with us after the performance and he would analyze the day's performance for us. It just showed us that you don't take anybody for granted. No one in the audience is to be taken for granted. I think that's one of the most valuable lessons that we have. Have I digressed? I have. Like I said, I don't have fans. I have friends. Uh, but the main point of contact for an actor is, especially a theatre actor, is the audience who's sitting in front of him and watching avidly what this actor is going to do. And that is when the contact happens. And it's an incredible moment because there are times when you don't make that contact, and then it's very sad because you're just playing for yourself. But most times, what happens is the moment you come out on stage and you feel the audience there, then you start playing for them and you start saying the things that the character should be saying, and you have the audience respond to that. There are many ways of response. Uh, you have the laugh, you have the applause, but most importantly, you have the rapt attention, which is what forms the basis for all audience interaction. When you know the audience is looking at you and you are looking at the audience and you're saying your lines in character, and you know that they are appreciating what you're doing. That is an incredible moment of discovery. Every time, every time. A satisfactory performance is when you have made that contact with the audience. I mean, you know that they have appreciated your work and all the work that you've put in so far. That moment is incredible. That is what gives an actor most satisfaction. Sure, of course, always. I think it's one of the basic things that an actor has to face, or uh, it's it's part of a prerequisite, if you want to call it that, of what an actor needs to prepare and how an actor prepares. There is that sense of anxiety. Have I done enough? Do I need to do more? How am I going to give us more? You know, and so on and so forth. But all that just disappears the moment You step out and the lights come on and you are there and the audience is there and the first words start to come out or the first moves start to happen and then everything falls into place. I personally don't. I thought I did, but it turned out to be false. Initially, it was that anxiety was very heavy. So I'd feel pukish. I'd feel like I want to take a leak. I'd feel like I want to, go to the toilet any number of times. And there would be that sense of unease. But that eventually settled down, and so right now what I do is I just sit down and I meditate for a little while. I just calm myself down, breathe, sort of work my way through the anxieties and talk to myself silently, of course. I don't talk loudly to myself, but I usually try to find a quiet place, sit down, and be meditative about what I'm doing. Well, I met at that point, my future wife at the end of a show. Yes, now I remember the name of it. It was called Dead Souls when I met the late Alex. And it was at the end of the show that I didn't know it at that point of time. My future wife, she suddenly sort of appeared backstage and said, "Where can I meet Alex?" And I was absolutely stunned. And I'd never seen anyone quite so gorgeous. So I just took this tongue and sort of looked at her and said, "Alex must be somewhere backstage." The first words I spoke to my wife. So, I mean, yeah. I'm not sure there's any comparison really, because each has its own audience, each has its own uh, strengths, weaknesses, and so on. Uh, the forms, the forms are all common. They have English theatre has its own proscenium, English theatre has its own street, English theatre has its own theatre in the round, etc., etc. So does Tamil theatre. My only problem is that English theatre is not being performed as much, and it certainly would deserve a lot more. But then neither is Tamil theatre. Tamil theatre, the only problem is that there's a lot of political theatre, but not enough uh, secular theatre, if you want to call it that, happening. And what is happening is that which is uh, bound by the ropes of the sabas, which is for me a kind of an unfortunate history, because it's a pretty, if I can be frank, it's a pretty incestuous kind of a situation. The same groups perform nearly the same kind of plays almost endlessly, and they constantly give each other awards for being displayed. And I don't find much movement there. They're still performing the same kind of plays that were being performed in the 70s. The only the politically minded theatre groups are doing anything that's interesting, or the experimental ones. People like Kuthupatrai, people like Nijanadaga Iyakam and so on. They are the only ones who are trying out things, who are trying to write stuff. There was a time when people like Girish Kannan was writing plays for one of our local groups, and that was incredible. And you got to see some really, uh, you know, uh, interestingly beautiful plays at that point of time, and based on Indian themes and Indian stories. But most of the other kind of theatre that English theatre that is happening is based on uh, Western playwrights. Not many adaptations are happening. Well, the few people who are doing good adaptations are Perch. Uh, Perch has been doing adaptations of Western theatre, and now they've started their own. They're looking at uh, localized themes, localized concepts, localized ideas, and that is taking them to fantastic places. Then again, all this kind of theatre is moving to Bangalore and being performed there. What's happening here? Then otherwise it's English theatre wise I'm still talking about. There's a couple of groups who are going from school to school or college to college and having them perform, uh, you know, some sort of plays. But one normally doesn't get to hear about these things. Uh, Again, it's the same sort of situation with Tamil theatre. There are lots of playwrights, there are lots of groups, but they're not. None of them is really worth uh, taking home. You know, if I can call it that, or writing home about is probably the phrase I'm looking for. There's a certain lack of coordination among the Tamil and the English theatre groups as well. One doesn't look very happily at the other, which is another sad situation because there could be so much brewing between them if they only put their minds to it. But for some reason they're not. And in general, among the artistic community in Chennai, whether it's painting or sculpture or theatre, there is a certain distancing of one from the other. They're not forming a community. They are not forming uh, as rich and as diverse a community as they should be. They're constantly sort of fighting each other. It's sad. Because on the other hand, if I look at, say, the theatre community and the artistic community in Bangalore, if there is an issue to be talked about, they all immediately manage to get together and they do something. Like recently, you had the issue of one of the museums being demolished for some other purpose by the government, and they all got together and they said no, this does not happen, and that project was shelved. Why the hell can't something like that happen in Chennai? Why can't the artistic community come together? Well, people have tried it a few times a few years ago, but somehow it just didn't happen. Everybody seems to be working very well in their own isolation rather than collaborating. Sad. There it is. There are some really talented people. My only desire for them is that they should start coming together with some of the other groups and start forming a community, a proper community. That's what I wish at this point of time. You can be a designer, you can be a, one can do puppets, one can design puppets, one can uh, look at makeup, one can look at lighting design, one can look at set design, one can look at theatre design. We don't have any theatres of note in Chennai. None which you can really call a home for good theatre. It's either music based or it's very fancy show based. Nothing that can help theatre along. There's no place which has, like I said earlier, there are no rehearsal rooms. Uh, there are no spaces where theatre can flourish. Not in Chennai, at least at the moment. Go for it. Go for it. I've never received any accolades. I mean, apart from the audience responding to the stuff that I do. And that's the only accolade that I'm really looking for. Uh, I don't know if I've accomplished anything seriously. I mean, uh, I've taught a good deal of people, and I think and I hope that they will be able to do something. That's where I am. I draw, I paint, I read, I sit and try to have a few laughs with my kids. So that's what I do. I'm familiar with Kannada. I'm familiar with Hindi. Uh, I can uh, I can understand Gujarati, but unfortunately, I don't speak it very well because when I was in Baroda, I because of the kind of environment there was, I picked up more Hindi and Kannada, in fact, than I picked up Gujarati, which is very strange. There were at that point of time nearly 20 Kannadiga students, and they were all conversing with each other in Kannada. So I had the opportunity to pick up Kannada there in Baroda of all places. Do I act wherever I go? I don't know. Uh, where do I go? Yeah, I guess I do. I try to find ways and means of using, you know, whatever abilities I have to try and uh, teach about acting, and therefore I end up acting myself. So that's an interesting thing. So we pick up pieces of text, we pick up uh, words, we pick up all sorts of things, especially when I'm teaching, when I'm doing any of the workshops. And uh, I usually, because I'm an actor, because I love the idea of acting and sort of interacting with the audience, I usually end up performing at least for a short while and having fun with it. Well, if I weren't a theatre artist, I'd probably be a sculptor because I moved from sculpture into theatre almost without a second thought. The move was quite natural in a sense, and one is constantly dealing with spaces, and I think that's what uh, got me into the idea of theatre as well, because one is dealing with spaces, one is dealing with how to deal with spaces as well. So at every level, that's what got me. I don't. I usually have never felt the need for any kind of sport. Uh, and theatre training has made it quite actually quite physical. So there's always been a lot of yoga or some kind of martial art or something, and it's always been great fun doing just that. I never felt the need to play any games. What is my all-time favorite play? I think it would be Glass Menagerie, Tennessee Williams. I think that play gets you, especially the beginning and the ending of it, where he talks about what his family was when he started off, what his family is now that he's left it. So it's a very heartrending sort of critique of almost all of Western civilization, what it stands for, but told in a very, very human way. I think that's what attracted me to Las Menagerie in the first place. It still attracts me. I still love to read the play. I still love to watch it on YouTube since I don't get to watch it anywhere else. I think right now, or at least in the recent past, One of my favorite characters was unfortunately passed away now. Was this wonderful gentleman called Manisar, K.G. Subramanian. He was one of the finest artists I've ever come across in all my life, and he's done some really great works. And I've seen some of his works firsthand in Baroda, and continue to follow his work and been to a couple of his shows here as well. And he's never ceased to amaze me with his insights into people, his insights into characters. A lot of the characterization that I find stems from his way of looking at the world, his way of looking at society, his way of and his work with gesture was, I think, one of the things that first attracted me. When he painted some of his figures, the kind of gesture, the kind of hand gesture, the kind of bodies they would have, taught me a lot about how to observe people. His act of painting taught me how to observe. I think that's incredible. Right now, it's puliyodare and vettal right now, and some good pachadi on the side. I think one of my biggest fears uh, is leaving the world without actually having accomplished anything. But I know that's not really true because uh, I have students, but that fear is always there. That you want them to carry the stuff that you've taught them, but will they is always a question, and that is a big fear. Oh, there's a kid, quite little bit withdrawn, very watchful. Uh, I constantly watched people, I constantly watched situations going on. I think I looked at characters, and a lot of the characters that I play now are drawn from those childhood memories, I guess. And that's what I was like. I was watching, and observing, and sort of recording in the back of my head everything that was going on. I haven't really thought about this, but I think if anything, I'd like to be remembered as as a teacher who could do what he was talking about. That that would be nice.